The Rock has opened up on his WrestleMania 40 return, and he took to Instagram to share his thoughts on that with a lot of stuff on the build to WrestleMania 40, how things unfolded at the event, and now a little bit of a tease as well for where things go from here for his next match, potentially. So, yeah, you can watch the video, have it linked in the description below, and you can watch everything The Rock had to say, but I wanted to kind of offer some additional commentary on it because I think there's some interesting stuff in here that he had to say about the whole entire thing. So let's just jump right into it. There's, again, a lot of stuff, and I'm going to sort of read it word for word just to sort of highlight exactly what The Rock said. But, of course, you can follow along or just watch the video yourself, but wanted to add some additional thoughts on it. So, of course, The Rock wanted to thank the fans. Quote, okay, so a few things. Number one, let me just start with thank you. Let me say thank you so much for all the incredible support going into WrestleMania. The build up to WrestleMania, I wanted to help create the biggest WrestleMania of all time, the biggest build up of all time, make wrestling cool again. Professional wrestling is cool again from the final boss. I want to say thank you so much for all your support. We shattered every WrestleMania record this past WrestleMania. We shattered every WWE record, and we did it because of you, the fans, and we did it for you, the fans. So thank you. So end quote on that one. I think what's important to add to that is he's not wrong, right? Like, they did just make this the biggest WrestleMania of all time. You think about the way, like, television viewership, business metrics, everything has just been through the roof on the road to WrestleMania 40 and now coming out of it. I mean, that's the thing, right? When you add The Rock into the mix, you know you're going to get that ratings bump. You know you're going to get increased interest and all that. But to think about how The Rock not only impacted just, the storylines and everything that we saw there, but, I mean, as if anyone was ever going to say, hey, they should do this without The Rock. There's no way that a business like WWE would ever look at this and say, you know what, we're probably better off without The Rock. I know he wants to do this. I know he wants to join and try to make wrestling cool again, as he said, but we'll be okay without The Rock. It's just the nature of the stardom, right? It's just you've got this global star who wants to get involved, and I think it was what was the coolest part, and we've talked about this before, was how committed The Rock was to making this work, right? He was so committed to the pivot, as it's been known now, which I'm still waiting on that WrestleMania documentary. I don't think it's out yet, but we said we're going to review it once they do put it out. But that was also the big part here. He thanks the fans, but I think part of this, it's like, hey, thank you to The Rock for being able to actually step into this, embrace the fact that he had to play the heel, be, the cool Hollywood final boss type heel again. And so I thought that was a big part. And like he said, it made wrestling cool because the increased interest was there. And now we'll see if WWE can follow up on that moving forward. But some more stuff here from The Rock himself. And so the big one, which is, remember, we went into WrestleMania wondering, is The Rock going to get injured? The last time he had an actual match of that caliber, length, which we had no idea they were going to go 45 minutes for that first one there. But we're like, what's going to happen with the recovery process, right? So here's what Rock had to say about that. Quote, how my body feels after WrestleMania. Banged up like a son of a bitch. But that's to be expected, and just the world we're in, whether it's pro wrestling, MMA, UFC, pro boxing, you go into these events, you prepare the best you can, you have your training camps, and you get banged up like a son of a bitch. And hopefully you come out of it non-injured. Doesn't always happen that way. My body's banged up. This whole week I spent recovering, getting rid of all the inflammation, lactic acid, but no injuries. So that's a key. So anytime you can go through a match like that, whether it's 45 minutes like the match that we had or whatever it was, it's WrestleMania. You leave it all out in the ring like every woman did, like every guy did in that locker room, and you get banged up, and hopefully you don't get injured. So no injuries here to report. My body feels great. Had a great week of working out, recovering. So, I mean, again, another huge success, right? The Rock's coming out of this with no injuries. And we thought about what a gap between that. And we don't count the Eric Rowan match that he had, whenever that was. But you think about the actual last true match that this guy had that many years ago. And the fact is he came out of this with no injuries, certainly, as he said, banged up, but no significant injuries like it was the last time around. And we'll go into this in just a second because he does mention kind of his training process. And I think that's so important here, how he trained to get his body to the style that it needed to where, it wasn't going to be just about, hey, being this huge guy that, larger than life figure on screen. Like, you had to get yourself into wrestling shape. And the fact is that he came out of this with no injuries. That's also a matter of the execution of how they put the match together. They didn't put him in a position to where he's going to take, too many significant chances. Although we know it did get pretty physical for The Rock, and some of the bumps he did take, hey, that guy, 11 years after the fact, whatever the last actual match he had, to be taking that and not come out of that with an injury, that again, I think speaks to the training process. But, I mean, it's also probably a little bit of luck too, right? Like, everything worked out according to plan, and you didn't get him coming out with any injuries, which is good because we know they're going to try this again at some point in the near future with another match for The Rock. And so maybe he kind of goes back to this and said, all right, this is what worked the previous time. Let's lean right back into it. Let's see what happens. So speaking of that training process, he did go into this. And, we talked about this a little bit in another video we did where he had the ESPN article on his training and all that. And he kind of went a little bit more into this here, but we'll talk about it for a second. Quote, I did a 12-week training camp to prepare for WrestleMania and wanted to make sure that I felt like my size was good. I weighed in about 284 pounds. My goodness. When it was bell time at WrestleMania last week, I felt like my movements were quick. They were sharp. They were fast where they needed to be. I was explosive where I needed to be. My main thing getting in the ring with those guys, my cousin Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and Seth Rollins, I wanted to make sure that my conditioning was on point because those guys can go, and they've been doing it for years consistently. And I've been away, so I implemented that 12-week training camp. I flew in a lot of wrestlers for the camp. Had a wrestling ring set up in Hawaii, wrestling ring set up in Southern California, and one set up in Georgia. And I wanted to make sure that, again, my conditioning was on point, that my cardio was on point, and I could go, and my motor was going and going and going. So I was very happy about that. So, like we said, he's already kind of revealed some of the stuff about different people that he worked with leading up to WrestleMania 40. And, again, it was not going to be the easiest thing for him going from where really it was all about the size that you could put on for some of these movie roles and all that to really getting back to wrestling shape. And like he said, you're in there with Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, all of these guys who have had these very lengthy matches before. And yet he still goes out there and has a 45-minute match. Now, of course, if it was a singles match, it's a little bit tougher to pull off a 45-minute match, which again is another reason why the tag team portion of this made a lot more sense maybe than just having The Rock versus Roman Reigns in that one-on-one setting or whatever, which also is going to make it intriguing as we go into the final part here that The Rock did tease for potentially his next match. It is probably going to be a one-on-one match, right? Depending on how they do the bloodline stuff, you pair The Rock with some of those guys, maybe you do a big 8-man tag somewhere, however you want to do it, but he's going to have probably at least 2 more singles matches. That's our expectation with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. So I think that's important to remember here. And again, this is where the training comes in. He's going to only get older from here, right? So it worked this time around. We see if he's able to kind of lean back on that for the next time, because he mentioned it's like all about sort of those quick, sharp movements. It's not about, having to go all the time when you're in these kind of matches, because they're going to set it up to where The Rock's not the one that's having to do all the work necessarily. So, I thought that was interesting just to sort of, as he said, it's not that you're just having a match. You're getting in there with guys who are used to this. They're used to the grind, night in and night out, in these lengthy type matches. But this is the first time he had tried to do anything like this. I mean, a 45-minute match from The Rock, we didn't see those in the heyday of The Rock. So, again, first time he's kind of done anything to that level. So, makes it even more impressive, I think, that they were able to pull it off. But, all right, here's kind of the last part here, and I thought there was a lot of good stuff on this one in particular because, this is where obviously we get out of character a little bit. It's The Rock doing his stuff on Instagram. You get a little bit out of the Final Boss character that he was doing all the promos and stuff leading up to WrestleMania. So you kind of have to get out of that and get back to opening up a little bit on what actually his true feelings are outside of the character, the Final Boss. So, quote, I want to say congratulations to the men that I was in the ring with. These guys are the best on the planet. Congratulations to Cody Rhodes, the new Universal Champion. And as I said, when the Final Boss returns, he's coming back for you. Rock did offer a little chuckle in there. He laughed a little bit about that. And I'll make you bleed again, boy. Congratulations, Cody Rhodes. Congratulations to my cousin, Roman Reigns, on an incredible 3.5-year run, maybe even 4 years. Just incredible and iconic and historic. Very, very proud of you, Uso. And also congratulations to who I feel is the real MVP of the entire WrestleMania weekend, Seth Rollins. Seth freaking Rollins. What an honor it was to share the ring with you three. What an honor it was for us to break records. And now my sights set on the next WrestleMania. But that's down the road, a conversation for down the road. So, a couple things there, right? He calls Seth Rollins the WrestleMania MVP, which is pretty tremendous endorsement if you're Seth Rollins to get that label from The Rock. Given everything at WrestleMania 40, it was Cody's shining moment. You had Roman Reigns kind of, ride off into the sunset for now as the former champion, and a bunch of other good matches we said on the card. But he calls Seth Rollins the MVP of WrestleMania weekend. And I think about it, this guy's been battling injuries. We know he's taking a little time away from WWE right now after WrestleMania 40. He goes in there, has this tag team match for 45 minutes. Then the next night goes in and has the match with Drew McIntyre for the world title. So even The Rock saw it. Like, Seth Rollins just continues. The workhorse of WWE is kind of what he's been, and deservedly getting some time off now from that. But the big thing coming out is sort of the tease for the next WrestleMania. And you saw The Rock say it there, setting his sights on the next WrestleMania. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean his next match is going to come at WrestleMania? Or is it The Rock, basically setting it up to say, I will be at next year's WrestleMania for my next match, but he didn't say that he wasn't going to have a match in between there. But we don't know yet, and as we said, our thoughts on that have changed a little bit here as we come out of WrestleMania 40. Do they do the Cody versus Rock match at SummerSlam like we initially expected them to maybe do, or do they hold it off to WrestleMania? Because they've got to do it with the way they teased it, and I don't think that's the one you're necessarily teasing for doing 2 years from now. But we also said is the option of where you do Rock and Roman Reigns 2 years from now. I think that's a risky proposition. I feel like you want to get both of those matches in within the next year, or maybe they do think that they can spread this thing out. You do one next year, you do one the following year. You've got your WrestleMania 41 and 42 main events with The Rock involved, but as we said earlier, that's where The Rock is getting older and older, right? And so can you guarantee or have that full confidence each year that he's going to be in that same position physically to be able to pull these matches off? And like I said earlier, these are one-on-one matches. These are not tag team matches where you can hide things. You kind of send the action all around, brawling everywhere and all that. It really becomes a matter of, can you pull that off where you can't really hide in a one-on-one match? So a lot of interesting dynamics there, but I think it was important to kind of look at the wording that The Rock said, sights on the next WrestleMania. Does that mean that his schedule is not going to allow him to have a match or work before next year's WrestleMania? Could be the case. And if so, is it Cody? Is it Roman? Which one happens? I initially predicted Roman. Maybe it's Cody, because I think they've got to get to that one soon enough. And we know The Rock is going to factor in to the bloodline scenario that's happening now. The two bloodlines, as we said, are kind of, branching off with Solo's portion, which we think is being led by the tribal chief, The Rock. And then you've got Roman potentially having his original bloodline with him and the Usos. So there's a lot of moving parts here with this story, but I think it's going to be interesting to see, what do we get from The Rock? When is the next time we see The Rock on WWE television? They teased the stuff with Cody. He's got to come back for Cody. He said it there, even out of character. He said he's coming for Cody next. And so a lot of things to figure out here, but that's everything that The Rock had to say about the fallout from WrestleMania 40. And what a return it was, and I think one that probably exceeded expectations without question. So let me know what you think about everything The Rock had to say coming out of WrestleMania 40, and where do we go from here? Is his next match at SummerSlam? Is his next match at WrestleMania next year, 41? Or is it somewhere else? Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Always appreciate you guys joining, watching, all the great feedback. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out, and appreciate you guys watching as always. Let me know what your predictions are. What's next for the final boss, The Rock?